The anime begins with our protagonist surveying the relationship he has with his mother, Mamako. This relationship is not very normal, no matter how much his mother takes certain confidences, like calling him by a nickname and such, so he simply sends this survey, but for some reason he puts her name on it. The next day, the survey inspector named Shiraise visits them and asks the main if he would like to travel to one of their online games. The main says yes, so Shiraise uses a series of special commands on the computer and sends it across the screen. The main can't believe this is happening, because he can finally get away from his boring life with his mother and have an adventure in another world, but before he can do anything his mother appears, because she is also part of this game. They both go before the king of the palace at the beginning, and he assigns their roles to the main and his mother, who are ordinary heroes and the mother of the ordinary hero. The main wonders what he means by ordinary, and it is exactly as it sounds. He was not brought to this world to save it or anything like that, but to have adventures and have a happy life. This world is simple. It's still a beta where they picked a few chosen ones and others who put their name in an anonymous poll. So the main starts to understand the reason why he was brought so out of nowhere. The rules themselves are those of an MMO game, but Mamako doesn't understand very well how they work, so they give her a guide so she knows what to do, and in the company of the main character, she shouldn't have any problems. Before sending them to the adventures, she gives them to choose one of the 3 swords, then the main chooses the wind sword because it seems the most suitable for him. But Mamako takes out the fire and water sword at the same time, showing that this open mind can be very useful in this world. Then they go to test their new toys against test monsters, and Mamako devastates with strong area attacks. But the main can only do attacks that border on pitiful, so he gets angry out of envy and thinks his mother knows something he doesn't because she stayed with Shiraise for a while before entering the game. Mamako can't deny it, but she also can't say anything because Shiraise didn't think it was the best idea. Then the main gets even more recent and gives her an ultimatum: either tell him or stop being his son. Hearing those words from her son's mouth affects Mamako a lot, so much that it makes her cry because she didn't want to upset the main or betray his trust. She just wants to go on an adventure with him. The main regrets for saying something so cruel and begs her to forgive him. Mamako lifts him up and tells him everything is fine, so they just have to start with all the adventures ahead of them. Before they start, they have to go to the guild to sign up. Then Mamako takes out her water sword and attacks the guild because the guide says she has to show her strength. But the main gets scared because at this rate, she will end up killing someone by chance. Luckily, the only one hurt is Shiraise, who was a receptionist, so they don't have any punishment. The main sees all the adventurers' records and chooses the ones that seem most useful. Then Mamako decides to interview them because it is important to know what kind of people you are going to share your life with, and so she will do the interview personally. Mamako dismisses the knight and the thief at once, but the merchant named Porta catches his attention, as he finds her very cute and her ability allows her to find discounts, which makes her a coupon with legs, so he approves her as a possible wife for his son. Then we have a mage named Wise, who from the CV seems to be in a very bad mood, so the main tries to discard her. But this mage had transformed into a presentation role and the main had stepped on her. Then, angry at the rejection and mistreatment, she teleports away the main to step on him. After getting revenge, the main sits her down next to him so he can interview her for once, but wonders why he's the only one who has to travel with his mom. Wise tells him it's because of how the game is made. The literal name says it's a mother's game, for mothers who want to have adventures with their children, meaning the mission is to improve the relationship between mothers and children. Unfortunately for Wise, she fought with her mom, and so now she is trapped in this world with no way out. Because of this, she wants the main to join her to their group and be adopted by Mamako. On the other hand, she is worried about the main, so she uses the fire sword to summon Mother Earth and locate her son. So Wise is locked up for violence against another player. Mamako offers to join the group if she is willing to reconcile with her mother, but Wise prefers to be locked up, so the main lets this pass for the moment and recruits her, because a mage would be very useful to them. As their first mission, they go into a dungeon which looks more like a well. To Mamako's bad luck, she steps wrong and ends up falling, so the others try to hold her up, but they don't catch her properly and fall with her. Inside it is very dark and no one has anything to light the place, so Mamako tries to shine and ends up learning this exclusive ability of mothers, showing how broken they are in this game. When it comes time to fight, Wise is excited because he finally gets to show how useful he is, but the slimes in this game can silence magic, so it has to be Mamako who solves everything with a single area attack. The main realizes that he won't have any limelight left if things continue like this, but as Porta collects the crystals, many slimes fall from the ceiling and gather to form a final super slime, which again silences Wise, leaving her useless twice already, and then throws an attack at Mamako to knock her out. The main tries to save her, but it is in vain, since the attack falls on her and melts all her clothes on top. To top it off, the attack is sticky, so the main ends up having an awkward moment with his mother by being on top of her, which only angers Mamako and teaches a lesson to the slime for generating situations that should not happen between mother and son. Inside the slime, Shiraise was in a coffin. Then Wise revives her with a spell, and as thanks, Shiraise leaves them a special mission. for which they have to prepare themselves by buying everything they need in the market, so Mamako goes shopping to buy all the food they need. But the main starts to have a bad feeling about this mission. The next day, the main has his first morning in this game, and it is very different from what was expected, as Wise looks like a tourist in Japan enjoying Mamako's food. Then they go to look for equipment, but Mamako complicates this process a lot because she doesn't understand why there are some clothes that she can't wear because of her character's category, so it ends up being a very delayed process. To top it off, she buys many unnecessary things just because they were on sale. Then the main gets angry with her. Everyone looks at the main ugly because he went too far and even he knows it. So he apologizes to her and Mamako asks him to lie on her lap to make peace. When they arrive at the village, the mayor gives them the terrible news that an empress has subdued them, and every so often she asks for a sacrifice of a handsome muscular man so she can grope them all day long. So he apologizes for asking them to stay for several days so they can run into her and try to stop her. The main's group can't ignore this request, so they decide to relax until that happens, and Mamako wastes no time as she even goes into the same hot springs as the main and brings all the waifus with her. The main is worried because they don't know anything about the Empress they are going to face, and there's nothing in the guides either, so Wise tells them what her powers consist of. But this raises the main's alarms because he doesn't tell them how he knows this information, and even gets up by chance because of his nerves, showing himself in full head in front of the main. On the other hand, Shirase goes to stop this Empress because her actions deviated from the purpose of the game, but the Empress defeats her easily, as her stun power is ridiculously strong in this world. So Shirase warns her that her daughter and her friends won't let her get away with it and leaves everything in the hands of the main and his group. Returning to the main, he is visited by Wise because she wants to go out for a while and wants the main to come with her. But the main has already realized the relationship between her and the Empress, so he tries to stop her from explaining to everyone and ends up falling on top of her by accident. Mamako sees this scene and asks them to do that in private. Then Wise gathers everyone to explain, but Mamako had also realized that she wants to talk about the Empress, although she didn't imagine that she was her mother. Wise does not believe that a person like her has any chance of achieving a reconciliation because of the way she is, but Mamako tells him that it is not true, since a mother will always have a special bond with her daughter, and to prove it, she hugs her. So she realizes that she does not feel the same as her mother. Thanks to this, the main character and the waifus decide to try to recover the ties that Wise had with his mother, although she is only focused on getting her sixth son for her own desires, because she believes that a daughter is useless. It turns out that the Empress offered him the game to try to reconcile after their divorce, but they started fighting because neither of them knew how to work as a team, so Wise ended up telling her that he was leaving. Back in the present, the main and his group go to the forest to investigate and realize that Shirase is dead in one of the trees, so they revive her and learn that the Empress is worse than they expected, since she not only has power that silences you and also has an external artifact that allows her to be invulnerable as if she were a cheater. Anyway, Mamako and the main do not lose faith that she will come to her senses when she sees her daughter again, so the plan is to talk to her to try to get her to surrender voluntarily. But as soon as the Empress appears, she shows the main that she was too innocent because for her, having a daughter is nothing more than shackles that take away your freedom, and that's why she prefers to stay as she is. This makes Mamako quite angry, since she as a mother also understands what she means when she says that children are selfish, but she still concentrates on the happiness she had when she saw them being born. So she destroys the space where the Empress is invincible and attacks her relentlessly until one of her attacks connects with her. Mamako is sure that she can win because she has the support of her son, unlike her, and not only him. After all, there is also Porta who helps silencing her and Wise who takes care of the Pokemon she had as servants. Mamako tells her that she feels sorry to see her daughter's ties with her, but the Empress refuses to accept that these ties are more than shackles, so she tries to flee, but between the Maina and her mother, they prevent her escape. Wise saves her from falling from too high and apologizes for what she said, for no matter how many words she uses, she will always want to be with her mother. This moves the Empress, so she gives up and is taken away by Shirase, who has several questions to ask her in the interrogation. With this reconciliation, Wise could have left the game, but she preferred to stay in the Maina team for a while longer, with the excuse that they can't live without her. So Shirase warns them that the Maina group will be in charge of solving the problems that the administrators can't solve, so she assigns them the place of their next mission. Mamako on her side is happier than ever, because after overcoming the Empress, Maina is more honest with his feelings, and this is what a father would always want to know his children. Days later, the main starts to get frustrated again because Mamako takes care of everyone, so they have nothing to do, let alone ways to get better. While they are resting, a blimp drops a bunch of pamphlets talking about the school, a place where you can get stronger and get rare items, which oddly enough are items that Wise and Porta want very much. Arriving at the school, the main bumps into a waifu named Medi, who could very well be the love of his life because of how much he likes her at first sight. Unfortunately, she comes with her mom named Mama, who is undoubtedly a super obnoxious person, who thinks she is the best mom in the world and sees everyone except her daughter as inferior beings. When classes start, Medamama tells the teacher that she will stay there to watch the classes her daughter will take, but instead of staying quietly watching, she interrupts the main so that her daughter can have freeway and can stand out in the class, and not only him, because she also uses a spell to make everyone in the classroom fall asleep. Upon waking up, Horta tells them that so much power must be because of his cane, because if not, he couldn't use spells without the incantations, and they found one of the cheaters Shirais was talking about, although at that moment they call the main through the megaphone to meet in the courtyard, so he runs off, thinking that it's his moment when a cute waifu is finally going to propose to him. But it was only Mamako, who was dressed as a schoolgirl to enter the classes, since Shirais was responsible for luring them to the academy so that they could supervise her. It turns out that this place is full of bugs, and as they found someone suspicious, Shirais entrusts them to fix the problems in the academy because they were assigned with the job of fixing what the administration can't, even though they never accepted. Because of this, Mamako also enters the class, and thanks to her armor and a new mother's special power, she manages to completely nullify the effect of Medamama's spells. As if that wasn't enough, she also starts answering the teacher's questions, winning his affection with her great charisma, so she ends up being the MVP student of the day, which doesn't make Medamama happy at all, and that's why he takes her to give her a scolding for not being the best. The next day, the main goes ahead to study more, and he is not the only one, since Medi also wants to train extra, but this time it will be even worse with his mom because she also put on a school uniform to prevent Mamako from getting all the points. This angers Medi, but she says it so quietly that the main thinks she imagined things. The first class is transforming things with magic, epic cooking with magic, but in the main's group, the only decent one in this area is Porta, so things don't look good. On the other hand, Medi seems to be doing great, but it's just illusory magic from her mother, so her food must taste awful. The main gets angry at being defamed in this way, so he goes to try it and confirms Wise's theory. Seeing that it doesn't go well for them, Mamako starts cooking for them and gives the main a taste of the sauce, but since he has a sensitive tongue, he blows several times so that he can drink it. Thanks to this, the main gains skill in his transformation of objects because Mamako has acquired the ability to increase this skill by blowing objects, so Porta and Wise queue up to receive Mamako's blown drinks, and thanks to this, they manage to make delicious meals. Thanks to this, the teacher gives them all a lot of points for their great teamwork, but now they have a lot of food that they don't know if they will be able to finish. Shirais appears and warns them to eat a lot because they will need all the energy they can get for the next activity. Once they enter the pool, the main understands what she means, as he will have to see his mother in a swimsuit, and to top it off, he wears an old school one. So he draws everyone's attention and makes him want to die of embarrassment. The task is to catch monsters in the pool and cook them, but none of them is an aerial monster, so the special power of his sword is useless. To top it off, Medi is a healer with high combat capabilities, so she wipes out everything she comes across with a single blow. Because of this, the main fearlessly goes in for success, but the most he manages to get is an octopus tentacle. So he decides to go in search of a monster that will allow him to overcome all the advantages that Medi takes from him. As he wished, he finds a giant piranha, but Medi also goes after it because they both want to win no matter what, although the mother's support is very different. While Mamako supports the main no matter what position he is in, very different from Medamama, who will not accept any other position than the first one. This angers Medi, so she stands still, but just as the amoeba eats the fish and endangers everyone with its tentacles. The main worries about Medi, who is distracted, but the amoeba looks for Mamako because he is tempered by her. Then the amoeba punishes him for his insolence and sends him flying, so the main can use his sword and manages to cut him in half. Thanks to this, the main overcomes Medi's advantage and she is happy for his achievement, but his mother bursts in anger and slaps him for not coming out on top. The main worries about Medi, because he has bad feelings about his relationship with his mother, and Mamako also feels the same way, so they both go to talk to her. But they confirm what they suspected, as Medi is exploding in a tantrum while wishing the afterlife to his mother because of how annoying she is. The main character gathers all the waifus to tell them that they have to save Medi from her mother, because he knows what that pressure feels like, so they all agree to help Medi. The next day, they announce the school festival at the last minute to test the spontaneity of the students. Mamako does not hesitate to open a restaurant with the main character and the waifus. Then Medamama also decides to open a food stall to prove that she and her daughter are superior. Unfortunately, Mamako is extremely popular, so her stall is a hit and leaves Medamama without customers. The main goes to check on Medi because he's afraid his mother will have a fit, but it only makes her angrier as he happens to see Medi and her while her mother was trying to dress her provocatively to gain customers. Due to this, she unfollows the protagonist and controls Medi to seduce the protagonist so that she can sabotage Mamako's restaurant. To his bad luck, the protagonist has an astral form because of so many deaths he has had. Then he finds out about Medamama's plan, and so he tries to convince Medi not to do what his mom says. Unfortunately, Medamama won't take her daughter's eye, so the protagonist asks her directly, as this battle for the restaurants is already decided, but Medamama refuses to lose, so she decides to compete in the beauty contest, where she sees no chance of losing. Thanks to Medi's cute clumsiness, she seems to be the only candidate with a real chance of winning. Before they announce the winner, Mamako arrives with miso soup for everyone and wins the hearts of the public, because there is nothing cuter than a housewife. Because of this, Mamako wins the contest and the protagonist takes Medi away before Medamama explodes. He also asks her to rebel against her mom because he can no longer follow her nonsensical expectations. Medi thinks that would be the same as being left alone, with the protagonist and the wafist tell her that they are her friends, so she will never be alone. So Medi gathers the courage to tell her mom what she thinks, even though Medamama is so upset that she doesn't care to listen and just wants to punish her for losing. Mamako interferes because she can't allow it, so Medamama tells her not to interfere because if Medi is not number one, it means that she is not number one mom either. But hearing this destabilizes Medi, because all this time she thought her mom was trying hard to make her the best, but now she finds out that it was all because of her selfishness. Her anger is so great that she doesn't mind falling into darkness, so she transforms into a dragon and attacks anything that moves. Medamama gets angry because now her daughter is not pretty at all, and the protagonist tells her that it is because of all the pressure he put on her. But this angers Medamama because she believes that it is because of the protagonist's influence that her daughter ended up deviating. Mamako stops her attack from Medamama and tells the protagonist and the wafist to go get Medi. Since as her friends have to help her, then Medamama tries to get rid of Mamako first, but he can't with her because even her golems choose to collapse rather than fight after he asks them nicely. Meanwhile, Wise tries to attack Medi with magic, but she sucks all his mana. So the protagonist tries to calm her down with words, since they both have annoying mothers, but he is not very successful. Back to Mamako. Mamako tries to talk Medamama into accepting her daughter as she is, because she is a mom and knows how hard it is to raise a child and how easy it is to end up over-influencing her life. Anyway, she doesn't believe that a parent has the right to direct her daughter's life. Mamako's words start to become like a new skill of mom's that she has just acquired, so they start to enter quite deep into Medamama's memories, and so the scepter starts to break. With the scepter's influence gone, Medamama saves the protagonist and the wafis who were on the verge of being scorched to death and tells them to stay out of it because this is only her fault, hence she has to fix it alone. Medi gets angry because she doesn't believe that her mom has repented from one moment to the next, so she attacks him mercilessly. But the protagonist defends her because her mother is the only one who can reach her heart, and that's exactly why they can't let her deviate in a moment of anger. Wise finally finishes recovering his power, then they start to counterattack, but Medi starts using Medamama's staff and tries to escape with it. So Mamako attacks with everything to avoid him, and the protagonist delivers the final blow. Already in his human form, Medamama approaches her to apologize for all the pressure he put on her. When Medi was born, he began to wonder if she would be a good mother, and so he began to teach her all sorts of things, but inadvertently began to saturate her. The protagonist tells her that the cane only intensified her feelings, meaning that in reality everything he did was trying to make her a good person. He just went a little too far. Still, Medi always knew his intentions, and that's why he listened to her for so long, but now he wants her to think a little more about how she feels and act accordingly. With mother and daughter reconciled, the protagonist invites them to the team, as a pair of healers would be very useful. But Medamama decided to get out of the game, so he asks Medi what she wants to do, because this time it's totally her decision. Medi obviously agrees to stay with the protagonist and become his heroine by whatever method necessary, but the protagonist wonders if they will be able to, because this game is familiar. Charis appears to clarify that she will make another exception, just as she did with Wise, because they helped control another family with unpermitted artifacts. As a reward, they are given a roulette where they will be able to redeem the points they got in class. Then the protagonist and the wafis get excited because they will finally be able to get these rare tools they came for. Unfortunately, neither the protagonist nor Wise have any luck on their rolls, so they're left with pure potions. As if it wasn't bad enough, Charis gives the main character one last roll, where it mysteriously comes out an apron for Mamako as a gift. So she starts glowing with happiness, and the main character has no choice but to accept the fact that his mom will be wearing that all the time. The next day, they return to the routine of being overshadowed by Mamako, who takes care of all the problems. So Medi starts to get angry because she will not be able to show off in front of the protagonist. Just a bait appears for them, as there is an event in a high dungeon, which has as a reward a wish. As suspicious as they know it is, this may be the only chance to overcome Mamako, so they go anyway. But upon arrival, they are intercepted by a crowd of moms who had lost their children. Neither the protagonist nor the wafis understand what's going on, but luckily there was Charis' corpse, so they revive him and ask him what happened. It turns out that this is an anomalous event, so she came to investigate it, but was surrounded by the mothers and a bug ended up killing her. Anyway, Everyone needs information to find out why is it that so many children were separated from their mothers, so Shiris joins the protagonist group temporarily to get information, and with her knowledge of the place she facilitates the trip. So they manage to get up to the second floor without much trouble. Because of this, they run into one of the pillars of Liber called Amanti. This organization is against the moms, so they have gathered many children to get the desire of the reward, but upon learning that Mameko herself is in the tower, Amanti gets in her pants and runs away as she can. Because being such a small group, there is no chance for them to overcome the dungeon. Now that they know the reason why so many children disappeared, Shiris tells them to withdraw and form a guild to gather more adventurers and overcome the dungeon. For this, he gives them a free house in the area, which is destroyed rather than free, but they still manage to live there. As an extra gift, Shiris gives them all maid outfits so they can take care of the new members, except for Mamako, since the protagonist has seen enough shady things and that's why he made his mom promise no more disguises. To pick up the place, the protagonists, Medi and Porta, go to the supermarket to shop, and in the meantime, Mamako stays behind to clean with Wise. Returning to the protagonist, they happen to run into Amante, who was also buying supplies for everyone in the dungeon, so he's scared shitless when he sees them, and to put terror into them, he warns them that they sent an assassin to his house. The protagonist worries for a second, but remembers that Mamako is there, so no problem. But soon Wise arrives to ask everyone to return, because at this rate, Mamako will be defeated. Upon arrival, they realize that he is with a merchant, and that's exactly what he means by losing, since the only thing he is going to lose is money. Upon closer inspection, Porter realizes that what he wants to sell her is a bomb, so the supposed merchant escapes and leaves them the crystal ball bomb in the middle of the countdown. Everyone panics except Mamako, because this bomb seems to be crying like a baby, so she calms him down and luckily ends up canceling the detonation. While they eat in the field, Amanti goes to see why no bomb exploded, and seeing them alive and kicking, he realizes that it was not enough for them, but warns them that it was only a warning and that the real attack will come soon. Arriving at the house again, they see that 3 of the sons came to threaten to blow up the city if they didn't do exactly as they said. The first thing they want is food from the famous Mamako, but dressed as a maid, so Mamako puts on the disguise for the sake of the innocents and cooks them the most delicious dinner in the world with the authentic homemade taste that can only be achieved by a mother. Now that they've eaten, they decide to go with something more adult, and so they take her to the bedroom to treat them to bed. The protagonist and the waifus try to stop them because this is too much, but their hands are tied because of the bombs in the city. So Mamako decides to sacrifice herself for the greater good. The bedtime treat she gives him is to cuddle him in bed and tap him until he falls asleep. So the other 2 are puzzled as that was not what they wanted, but Mamako puts them to sleep too, so they all remember how beautiful a mother's love is and go back to them repentant. The next day, the mothers go to thank Mamako for convincing their children to return and apologize for all the trouble these 3 caused, and they are ready to join the guild to go conquer the dungeons and get the rest of their children back. But just before entering, they all remember that they left some things unfinished in their houses, so they ask Wise to make one and transport them to their homes. Because of this, the group takes too long, and Lover, for his part, begins to get bored waiting for them. Then his clumsiness comes out and he falls, pressing the switch of the booby trap he had for the protagonist group. They don't know it, but they were saved from a deadly trap. Although Wise can't be so grateful, because they left her dry from so many teleportation requests and they don't see an hour in which they can move forward with a group of pure housewives. By the time they all finish doing their things, Wise ends up with just enough, so the protagonist carries her and they continue on their way at a good pace. After several floors, the ladies get tired, so they decide to take a short break. Amandi appears out of nowhere to try to defeat them again, and this time she does it wanting to prove that she is better than any mother, that is to say that they are not necessary. For this, she confronts Mamako in household chores, but is roundly humiliated, so she has no choice but to escape and try to defeat them later. After a while, they begin to find a rune that they did not know, which seems to make them lighter, so they grab it on all floors and advance in record time. Although when they reach the 90th floor, they realize that they are because the rune did not make them lighter but removed a garment every time they used it. The protagonist resigns himself to seeing his mother again, but this time it is the least of his problems because Amanti appears on the scene with many monsters to defeat Mamako once and for all. The mothers recognize their sons in these beasts as they are actually the sons who have been transformed by Amanti to fight their mothers, but this time Mama's power is stronger because Mamako gives them a speech that moves them and reminds them how much they love their mothers. Amani gets angry when she hears this, so she uses a magic stone to fill them with anger so that they attack their mothers while she takes it upon herself to look for the trophy at the top of the dungeon. Unfortunately, Mameko can't attack other people's children, so Wise and Medi buy time for the others to do something about it. Mamako warns all the girls that there are surely things they hate about their children, but that they have to accept these feelings because they come directly from their children. This teaching comes with a special power from Mamako, so they all gain an armor with which they can fight face to face with their transformed sons, and at the point of bear hugs, they gradually free them. One of the sons, named Paki, apologizes to everyone because they were too weak, and yet they tried to stop Amanti among all of them. But obviously they failed, so as compensation for the guild, they tell them the wish that Amanti wants to get, which is to disappear all mothers from the face of the earth. To top it off, the sons tell them that Amanti didn't need them to defeat the final boss, so it's just a matter of time before he gets his wish, so they have to hurry. On the penultimate floor, everyone gets separated as they enter, and the protagonist sees Mamako first, but realizes she's acting strange and wants to lead him into a dead end. So he throws a rock and realizes it's a trap. As if one extra Mamako wasn't enough, a whole army of Mamakos show up and try to catch the main character. So he starts running for his life until Mamako finds him and angrily confronts all the imposters for scaring her son, as they might have generated a backlash against the mothers by chance. After a while, the other waifus arrive and they just hear a big explosion. So they run to the top floor to see what is happening, and it was Amante who had defeated the final boss by herself. This shows her great strength, but the door to the top floor closes, so she decides to get rid of Mamako with her own hands. Wise attacks first with a wind spell, but it is thrown back at them without doing any damage to Amanti. Then the protagonist realizes that something strange is going on. Anyway, Medi doesn't stop to think about it because he thinks it's the fault of Wise's clumsiness, so he casts a death spell towards Amanti. But again, they are reflected back. With this, they confirm that Amanti has an armor that returns all the attacks, that is to say, if Mamako attacks, all would be defeated in an instant, although this is no reason to abandon her in the fight against Amanti, so she puts herself in front of her to prevent her from fighting alone. Amanti does not understand how he defends her, if it is because of her that he could not have an epic adventure with his waifus. The protagonist admits that his mom's meddling prevented the adventure from being as good as it could have been, but he still wants to keep it that way, because it's a unique adventure between him, his mom, and her friends. Hearing this, Mamako is speechless, so she moves straight ahead to scold Amanti for rejecting mothers so much. Only this rejection is a special mom power, which leaves her on the edge of the other world and was not reflected because it is not an attack. It is a scolding with good intentions. Amant realizes she can't fight it, so she runs to the Rock of Desire to fulfill her goal, but the protagonist and the others follow her. So they end up asking for the first thing that comes to mind to avoid Amant's desire, and the only thing that came out at that moment was to ask for fresh eggs, just as Wise had predicted would happen. With the desire consumed, Amanti has no choice but to flee and ask for help from the other pillars of the organization to get rid of Mamako. But meanwhile, she will continue traveling with her son happier than ever, because she heard him say that he preferred to have this adventure by his side. A few days later, Shirace invites them all to the beach to relax after so many missions, but the protagonist gets a little discouraged since Mamako is always behind him and does not let him do anything alone. This is something that Mamako can't control because even though he's already a big boy, for her he will always be her cute little son. So Shirace becomes one and organizes a game of watermelon smashing. Mamako gets excited because she used to play a lot with the main character when he was a child, so she guides him with her voice, but she guides him to her chest. So the main character gets embarrassed and sends the wooden sword flying into the sea. While they eat the watermelon in peace, the sword returns and falls on the protagonist's head, causing him to faint and giving him amnesia. The waifus try to explain who they are. The only one who manages to make him understand something is Mamako. So she stays by his side and the waifus decide to let her take care of it. Mamako starts to make the food and the main character accompanies her, for which she is very happy, since cooking at her side was one of her dreams. The protagonist is happy to have made her happy, then asks her to tell him more of her dreams to make as many of them come true as they can. Because of this, they start playing Twister, which only makes the protagonist take a closer look at Mamako's body and be tempered by her great gifts. Then they go to collect crabs, but one of them gets into Mamako's clothes and tears the strings of her bikini, so the protagonist hugs her so that no one will see her. This is surprising to her because the protagonist has always been embarrassed when they are near, but at this moment the protagonist would rather that than let anyone see her as she came into the world. Medi and Wise realize that the relationship the protagonist is developing with Mamako is more than just mother and son, so they decide to seduce the protagonist to take his mother's eyes, but the protagonist rejects them out of hand because he's mad at easy girls who stick their chest to provoke, and Wise causes him pain because of how flat she is. This leaves the waifus in KO, and while they recover from the psychological damage, the protagonist tries to propose to Mamako and almost eats her mouth, but a kraken attacks them, and this brings back memories to the main, because as a child Mamako had also saved him. Thanks to this strong impact, the main recovers his memories and everything returns to normal, thanks to the fact that he does not remember anything of what he did or felt when he was with amnesia. But now is his turn to take care of people without memories, since a tentacle of the kraken jumps and hits on the head of the waifus, so the main gets pale because he will have to deal with all of them.